Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and today I have a very cool team for you. I wanted to build around Speed Booster Iron Crown and found really cool niches for both Florges and the newly buffed Iron Jugulis, which are very underused Pokemon, and I think they work so well in this team, alongside a very cool Trick Room component with Gallade and Hatterene. So I can't wait to show you this team in action, and I'll break it down in 3 parts. The first one, the Speed Booster Iron Crown. This is something that I wanted to build around. I found it really interesting that Iron Crown can boost basically any of its stats with a booster energy. Speed Booster Iron Crown is super cool because it outspeeds Scarf Urshifu by 1 point. It obviously outspeeds big threats like Fluttermane, Toy Scarf, Landorus, and could do a lot of damage. The only issue with getting Speed Booster for your booster energy with Iron Crown is that even with max speed Timid, you can't fully invest in your special attack stats. So you lack a bit of damage output because you've not got fully invested special attack, and you don't have a special attack booster energy because you're using it for speed. That's where Florges comes in. Florges has the Symbiosis ability, so once you have your booster energy for speed activate with Iron Crown, Florges can then pass it a damage boosting item. In this case, I'm using Life Orb. That means that you can have both the speed and the power on Iron Crown all at once, which is super strong. It puts a lot of pressure on the opponents. It's really important for certain calcs. For example, Speed Booster Iron Crown can't actually guarantee a one-hit KO on Fluttermane with Tachyon Cutter, but if you pass it the Life Orb, that becomes a guaranteed one-hit KO. It also means that its expanding forces are incredibly powerful off the bat. So let me show you this replay just to show how strong this combination can be. So in this battle, my opponent is going to lead with 2 steel types in Klefki and Archaludon. It's not great for an expanding force team because obviously they both resist. You can see at the beginning of the battle, I send out my Iron Crown and an item activates. I pass over the Life Orb with Florges' Symbiosis, and then the Quark Drive activation happens. I don't know why that's the order of activation. It looks weird that like the Symbiosis goes off before the Quark Drive activates. But anyway, this first turn is very typical for this team. I swap out Florges for the Indeedee, get the Psychic Terrain up, and then I can terrestrialize my Iron Crown into a Psychic type to boost the power of Expanding Force even further. Now, Expanding Force is obviously resisted by both opponents, but I'm thinking with the Life Orb, the Psychic Terrain boost, the Terra Psychic boost, it will still do a decent amount of damage. Psychic Terrain is also very helpful to prevent the Klefki from going for like a Thunder Wave. And you see I go first here, the Speed Booster is kind of useful, but these two are slower anyway. And I do over half with the resisted hit on a spread move for like Expanding Force, which is kind of crazy. Fortunately, the opponent goes for a Flash Cannon into the Florges slot, which is now the Indeedee as they set up the Trick Room. And my Iron Crown is kind of undamaged here, which is really great. I can protect with my Iron Crown because Indeedee does actually have Trick Room, so I'm going to try to reverse the Trick Room with my Indeedee this turn. Klefki sets up the light screen, which will mitigate my damage. It means that the opponent might be able to live the next turn because of the damage mitigation there. And Klefki and Archaludon do seem to have pretty cool synergy with like Trick Room and Light Screen and Rain Dance as well to allow it to get the Electro Shots off, so that's pretty cool. I am able to reverse the Trick Room here, and unfortunately for my opponent, I actually have Helping Hand on my Indeedee, which basically negates the light screen that they set up, meaning that this next Expanding Force is going to do a ton of damage to both of my opponents, and the Expanding Force goes off, and it does actually just take them both out. It does mean that neither of them were as specially bulky as they could be. The Archaludon wasn't Assault Vest, and the Klefki was probably physically defensive, not specially defensive, but still, being able to muscle past 2 steel types that resist with a spread move is kind of crazy, and that's where the Life Orb is so important. Now you see why the booster energy is so important, because the opponent brings in an Ogerpon, and if this is max speed, it would actually outspeed my Iron Crown, and in the rain with the Terra boost of their water type damage, it would one-hit KO Iron Crown. But because of the speed booster energy, I can guarantee to get off another Expanding Force. Unfortunately, 2 Cannon is in a really bad position here. If Trick Room had stayed up, it probably would be doing a lot of damage, but unfortunately, it's not in the good position and is just going to get one-hit KO'd by this Expanding Force that does indeed outspeed the Ogerpon and one-hit KO the Toucannon. The Ogerpon is able to take it because of the light screen, because of the +1 special defense. It's still very impressive that it can take that, and it's still looking like a bit of a threat because with the Terra boosted, Rain boosted Ivy Cudgel, that's going to do a ton of damage. It is going to take out my Wizkid, the Iron Crown, but at this point of the battle, it's definitely done its job. KO'd 3 out of 4 Pokemon and left the last remaining Pokemon under half health. Now I can send out Serving, the Gallade, and because I have Follow Me on my Indeedee, I can protect my Gallade. The Ogerpon doesn't have any spread moves, so I can just, you know, feint the Ivy Cudgel, but Serving can clean this up with whatever move I choose to go for. I actually go for the Psycho Cut to take out the Ogerpon there. But I think that this battle really demonstrates the combination of the Life Orb and the Booster Energy really working in my favor and blasting through a team that not only resists the Expanding Force, but even set up Light Screen. So it's a really, really powerful combo, and I think it's super cool to try. Battles can end really quickly with this combo as well. So in this second battle that I'm just showing you now, you can see the item activation with my Iron Crown. Again, the Life Orb is passed across and Quark Drive activates, so I get the speed boost. Against my opponent, they brought Ursaluna and Whimsicott, which I'm imagining gives them kind of options against Trick Room with the Ursaluna, and then Tailwind option with the Whimsicott if I do go for a fast mode, which I have gone for here. I switch out my Florges into the Indeedee to get that Psychic Terrain up, and I do Terrasilize into a Psychic type again. The Whimsicott goes for Tailwind, but even if this is max speed timid Ursaluna, my Iron Crown still guaranteed outspeeds because of that booster energy speed, so I'm able to get my Expanding Force off before any attacks from the opponent and just one-hit KO both their Whimsicott and their Ursaluna. So I'm already on turn 1 before they really get to attack. I'm up 4-2, and my opponent does decide to cancel the battle there. So you can see how powerful and how much pressure this combo sets up. So that's the Iron Crown portion of the team, but now I want to talk about the next mode, which is actually the Trick Room portion with Gallade and Hatterene. So in this battle, my opponent has a ton of threats, but a lot of them use spread damage moves. So we've got Sandsear Storm on Landorus, Dazzling Gleam on Fluttermane, Bleak Windstorm on Tornadus, and Expanding Force on their own Iron Crown. So I'm thinking that my Wide Guard Gallade will do really well here, and I'm going to bring my Hatterene in the back as a Trick Room sweeper. So my opponent ends up leading with their Landorus and their Fluttermane, and I'm thinking maybe they're just going to go for like a Dazzle Sandsear Storm to prevent me from getting up any Trick Room. If they think that they can get through Indeedee's Follow Me with spread moves, that might be what they want to do. So I'm going to go Wide Guard with Gallade and Trick Room with Indeedee, and the opponent actually switches out their Landorus into Incineroar, and you can see here that I actually have Clear Amulet on my Gallade, which is great because it keeps the pressure on Incineroar. I have super effective Sacred Sword, which is extremely powerful with the sharpness boost. Unfortunately, my opponent has Trick Room on their Fluttermane. They don't seem to have Imprison, because Imprison would have stopped my Trick Room there. I would have been in a kind of an awkward position, although I think I would have been able to take out the Fluttermane if they had done that. But they switch out here. I kind of thought that now they've seen the Wide Guard, I can maybe go for Follow Me on Indeedee, and my Gallade also has Trick Room, and that's why this combo is so good. Because if you think the opponent's going for single target attacks, you can go for Follow Me and Trick Room on Gallade. If you think they're going spread, you go Wide Guard Gallade, Follow Me on Trick Room on Indeedee. So I'm able to get my Trick Room up as they switch out their Fluttermane into Iron Crown, and on this following turn, I can go for a Sacred Sword into the Iron Crown with Helping Hand. That is a one-hit KO. You see the critical hit there? I promise you that is not required. Helping Hand Sacred Sword is always a KO on Iron Crown. As the opponent makes a misplay here, going for the Parting Shot into Gallade, they've already seen the Clear Amulet, so that's not going to work. Now my opponent sends out the Landorus, and actually they go for the Protect, as I'm not targeting the Landorus on this turn. I want to get rid of the Incineroar with my Sacred Sword, which you can see is an easy KO, because it's super effective. Base 135 power after the Sharpness boost. It's more powerful than Close Combat with no downside, and it ignores opponent's stat changes too. It's so good. Gallade is so strong into this new meta with Incineroar. It's such a good Trick Room Pokemon. So now that's gone, my Hatterene in the back is looking very strong. I can go for a Helping Hand Psycho Cut into the Landorus here just to ensure the KO. I think it probably gets close to a KO without the Helping Hand, but I just wanted to make sure that I can take that out, as I know that I can deal with the Fluttermane with my remaining Pokemon. This is also a nice battle to show because you can see that my Gallade actually lives that Dazzling Gleam. Gallade has good special defense, it's max HP invested, so with spread damage moves like that, it does actually have a chance to survive. It also has the Terra Fire, which prevents burns, but also allows it to resist Dazzling Gleam from Fluttermane. So all of this to say that Gallade is looking super good for Trick Room setup now. And I also obviously have the Hatterene. Hatterene's great into matchups with a Moongus if they're going to try to spore your Trick Room setters. Magic Bounce on Hatterene is a really great way to stop that. It also can bounce back any taunts, for example. So this team has a lot of Trick Room options and a lot of Trick Room power. Gallade's Fighting Stab is great for getting rid of the dark types that would otherwise be immune to Expanding Force. The Hatterene has Terra Water, which allows it to have some damage output into Incineroar with Terra Blast, but also means that it resists Make It Rain from Goldengo. So all of that, I think that this Trick Room component is very strong. And actually, I go with Trick Room as much as I go with the Iron Crown component. I really, really like the setup. I think it's a very reliable setup. And obviously, one-hit KOing those Incineroar with Sacred Sword is extremely satisfying. But now the moment you've all been waiting for, because Iron Jugulis, I think, is the cornerstone to this team. I don't think it would work without Iron Jugulis. It's got a couple of extremely important roles to play on this team. So I was not an Iron Jugulis fan before this team. I hadn't really used it, didn't particularly like its design in abstract, but now that I've used it and looked at it in detail, I love it. The way that it's so tiny is just adorable. It's got the LED faces that all turn off when it goes to sleep, and its second and third heads are like detachable things that it can let fly off if it wants to. I think it's so cool. I love this Pokemon's design. Not only that, but it's recently been buffed with Meteor Beam, and this is huge because no one really knows that it gets Meteor Beam right now, and with Helping Hand, Meteor Beam is a KO on pretty much all Incineroar that aren't wearing Assault Vest. So that is so cool. Outside of KOing Incineroar, Iron Jugulis is super important for dealing with Psychic types. Steel types and dark types that can take the Expanding Forces are dealt with by fighting coverage on Gallade, and I do also have Focus Blast on Iron Crown, although it's not the best. But Psychic types are still a problem until you Dark Pulse them with a +1 special attack Iron Jugulis after its Meteor Beam. Also, after it's used its Power Herb, Iron Jugulis is another recipient of the Life Orb from Florges, so with +1 special attack from Meteor Beam and a Life Orb, it actually becomes a very powerful threat in its own right. Now I have to show you the receipts of this Pokemon working, and I promise you, this is the most fun. This is the reason to use a team, I think. One-hit KOing Incineroars on the ladder is so funny. No one sees it coming because no one is using Iron Jugulis. No one knows it gets Meteor Beam. So, in this next battle, looking at the opponent's team, they've got some really interesting stuff that I don't really know how it goes together. They've got like a Sceptile and a couple of Dragon types, so it might be Dragon Cheer Sceptile, which would be cool to see. They also have the Archaludon and a Cresselia, so maybe a Trick Room component there. And they have an Incineroar, which is the bane of the Expanding Force team. So because they have the Cresselia and the Incineroar, I'm thinking that this is a match for Iron Jugulis to do its job. So my opponent is actually going to lead with Incineroar and Cresselia, which are the two best stops to an Expanding Force spam team, as I lead with Florges and Iron Jugulis. The opponent's Incineroar gets the Intimidate, so that's fine, that's whatever. But I have Terra Ghost on my Iron Jugulis, and this is because its specific job of stopping Incineroar means that I do have to be immune to Fake Out. If I can get this Incineroar, if I can feint the Incineroar, then basically the Expanding Force in the back will be able to do the job. So I've got the Helping Hand here on Florges. This is great because Helping Hand has higher priority than Fake Out, so there's no way that Fake Out could have stopped this play. And now I can go for the Meteor Beam with my Iron Jugulis. It charges up, I get a special attack boost, and then with the Power Herb activation, I can use the Meteor Beam straight away and take out that Incineroar, which is so fun. I promise you, this is the most satisfying thing I've been doing in VGC Regulation F. It's so fun. Then the Symbiosis activates and I get the Life Orb on top. So I'm +1 special attack with the Life Orb now. That is so strong. Just to point out though, it's kind of annoying that the life orb only passes over after Meteor Beam is fired. If it had happened before, I wouldn't have to rely on Helping Hand so much. But this turn anyway, they bring in the Archaludon, I go for the Helping Hand, and I can go for a Dark Pulse into that Archaludon, and it does almost all of its HP. That indicates that this is probably an Assault Vest Archaludon that I almost one-hit KO'd, which is absolutely stupid, especially considering this Iron Jugulis has very little special attack investment. It's very bulky, pretty fast, very little special attack investment, just +1 special attack on a Life Orb with a Helping Hand is almost a one-hit KO against an Assault Vest Pokemon. And it's kind of further confirmed because they have Snarl, which is not common on non-Assault Vest Archaludons. The opponent forfeits at the end of that turn because I've effectively KO'd their Archaludon, and they have a Cresselia, which is weak to my Dark Pulses, and I don't know what they had in the back, but it was potentially like a Latios or maybe even a Sceptile, which again is weak to Iron Jugulis' stab moves. So they forfeit the battle there. That one was funny because Iron Jugulis just got in a great position and I didn't even need to bring in my Expanding Force users. But yeah, KOing Incineroar works so well because no one really knows what Iron Jugulis is doing at the moment, so really fun Pokemon to use. It can get massive damage once you get the +1 special attack and the Life Orb, and it's super strong in its own right when that happens. And it's just a really important Pokemon to have on this team to be able to fill those roles with an Incineroar killer, which is also good against the Expanding Force mirror match. So that's the team. I've had so much fun with it, and I really hope that you do too. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Pokemon content. I've left the link to the paste for this team in the description, and obviously the code is on screen right now. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.